Hello, everybody, and welcome to the More Than a Business live LinkedIn show. My name is Mitch Case. I am your host. I am also the owner and CEO of More Than a Meal, where we help organizations strengthen their most valued relationships by showing gratitude and appreciation one meal at a time. This live show is intended to highlight the business owners, the HR executives that are doing the hard work day in and day out, not only just to grow their business, but to truly make it more than just the business itself. We are on our second episode today, and I'm incredibly excited to introduce our next guest, Mr. Ryan Maybee. If you haven't heard of Ryan, you might recognize the organization J. Rieger & Co. He is the co-founder and managing director. If you aren't familiar with J. Rieger just yet, they were originally founded in 1887 in the Kansas City West Bottoms. As you probably imagine, they went through the prohibition, which unfortunately forced them to close in 1919. But in 2014, 95 years after, the brand was relaunched, and they're currently located in the historic Electric Park District in the East Bottoms of Kansas City. And we all know that they serve up some amazing, amazing drinks. But I'm going to welcome Mr. Ryan Maybee so that he can tell us just a little bit more about what it is that he specifically does within J. Rieger, and then maybe tell us a little bit more about some of the things that we should know about J. Rieger & Co. Ryan, welcome to the show, man. Why don't you give us just kind of a high level of what it is that you do and maybe a few of those things that we need to know that we just don't quite know yet.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Mitch. J. Rieger and Company. We're here in the East Bottoms now. Thank you for mentioning the history of the brand. But we have a really beautiful facility here that we expanded back in 2019. We now have 4 bars on site, including a really massive, beautiful outdoor patio bar. We have multiple event spaces. We have an historic exhibit museum that tells our story, as well as kind of connecting to Kansas City's Prohibition history. And we're open 7 days a week with tours, food, drink, everything you could possibly want, including a slide, which you're not going to find in any other distillery.
I will definitely say you can pick up some pretty good speed on that slide. I've been down that a handful of times, so with caution, but it is a fantastic slide. Ryan, one of the things that I really like to start off with is just a story. I think that's the best way for most of us to connect with an individual or a brand. So maybe share with us a specific story of impact or an example that maybe demonstrates what J. Rieger & Co. has maybe had on a specific individual, whether that's a patron or a team member or even the community at large.
Well, in the hospitality industry and in this business, I think, those types of examples happen just about every day. But the big thing that really comes to mind that is impossible to forget about or look past is the recent history with COVID in 2020 and just how devastating that was, or potentially devastating it was for our business, as well as, destroying so many other businesses, and how we quickly pivoted to hand sanitizer production. I mean, we had to shut down our facility. We were really fearful of having to lose a lot of our employees. But it was the shift to hand sanitizer that really saved our business, as well as allowed us to keep all of our people on staff. We shifted everyone over to like a kind of a makeshift assembly line, making hand sanitizer, bottling it, shipping it out. I mean, it was really quite remarkable. And so it did, so much good, I think, for the community here in Kansas City. We were donating a lot of it to first responders and to anyone else, that needed it, as well as we were selling it to retailers all over the country, shipping it everywhere. So it became very quickly, more or less overnight, a necessity for us to do this, to keep the business alive, as well as take care of our people in our community.
Yeah, I remember when I heard, and I think I even saw some pictures or videos, and maybe it was on LinkedIn, but just cars lined up as you guys were just distributing hand sanitizer where, you just could not get your hands on it. And it's hard to believe that was literally over 3 years ago when that happened. I imagine you guys just didn't like flip this switch and you went from whiskey to hand sanitizer. What were maybe some of the challenges that you guys faced in switching that over, and maybe more so with your team members? How did you adapt to that? Because that is not what they came on board to do.
No, definitely not. The good news is that we make alcohol, and hand sanitizer is 80% alcohol.
All
So
right, you know the
we
recipe.
kind of, yeah, we knew the recipe. It was only 3 ingredients and 80% of it's alcohol, so we were good there. We kind of had to figure out the rest of it, which was really simple. The actual production of it was not complicated at all. We figured that out pretty quickly. It was more or less the scaling up of it. That was a big challenge, because everybody kind of started to do this, started to scramble, in that direction in our industry. And so sourcing bottles and misters and, lids and things like that became kind of a logistical challenge. As far as taking care of our people, obviously a bartender or a server or a cook in the kitchen or a tour guide, never envisioned, sitting in a hot warehouse, making hand sanitizer on an assembly line, but none of us expected anything that we were going through at that point.
Right.
And so I think the wonderful thing is, and I think back to those days, and it's very vivid memory, was just how I think willing and capable and grateful our staff was just to be there, be working together as a team. We did everything we could to make sure that they felt safe, and I think that's all really, it's really important. And so while that was a really big challenge and a tough time for everyone, there were some really, wonderful, moments that came out of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, just with so many different businesses having to make these immediate changes overnight and come through and try and keep their team together, I think what you guys did for not only your team but even the community is very very impactful and honorable. So that's kind of a good way to segue into this next section of where I'd like for you to maybe talk a little bit more about the company itself and what sets it apart. Like, we know that you guys make alcohol, you just talked about that, but the work that goes behind that, you have several team members that are making this brand what it is. Kind of talk about what sets you guys apart and what truly makes it more than just a business.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of points of differentiation, within our company culture and within our business itself. It's really grown to become something far bigger than I ever really imagined it would be, and it's happened pretty quickly.
Yeah.
We now have when Andy and I launched this company 9 years ago, we had 0 employees. We first released our Kansas City whiskey. We had no employees. It was literally just the 2 of us. And today we've got 120, and it's everything from production to hospitality, tour guides to admin, marketing. We have our own marketing and graphic design department. We have our own sales force because we distribute in 27 states and around the world. And so we have a whole team dedicated to that. So I think juggling those different departments, different personalities, different, within the same 4 walls, wildly different job descriptions and purposes, being able to find a common thread there and keep everybody, together and working towards a common goal. I actually think is a really fun challenge. I think that's really cool. I think it adds, color and personality to who we are as a business. And, I think I said to you before we went live that there's never a dull moment, it's, there's always something happening. It's always interesting.
I'm always curious, and your business is much larger than mine. And when I first started our business, it was exciting to do what we were doing, and then all of a sudden you start gaining traction, and you bring somebody else on to help, and then you're trying to maintain this culture by handing it off to somebody else, or these core pillars, or you talked about now you have tour guides. I imagine you guys didn't start off your brand thinking, wow, we're going to be tour guides one day, but you have to figure out how to go about making that work. But how do you guys maintain, like, I don't know how many employees you guys have across the board. I'm sure it fluctuates, but How do you maintain like your core values and core pillars of Jay Rieger as your team expands and maybe you get further and further away from those individuals that are on the front lines?
Yeah, no, that's a real challenge to, growth and scaling your business, is that you can sometimes kind of, get lost from where you came from, and you want to make sure that you're maintaining that integrity to, how you started and what you set out to do from the beginning, and like you don't lose sight of that, right? So we now have 120 employees, from doing wildly different things and in different capacities and different backgrounds. And so to try and maintain that like core unity, that's actually something that we work on a daily basis. It's not, I don't know that that's ever something that you can say, well, we accomplished that or we achieved that. I think it's an ongoing, regular part of growth, and it would never end. But to give you some specific examples of like how we tackle that issue, a lot has happened just over the last 3 years. I mean, since COVID, there's been a lot of cultural change within our industry, societal change, different expectations, and in just the overall workforce. And so we've been trying to be proactive in those things. And one thing we did not too long ago, I would say that was about a year and a half ago. Yeah, it was the beginning of 2022. We have an HR company that we work with that's third-party HR, and we don't necessarily have an in-house HR person, but we created a position and had exactly the right person to take this role that we call the Director of Culture and Development. And her full-time, she's executive level. Her full-time job is here to lead that kind of initiative of maintaining the culture, overseeing education, making sure that, teams are working well together and there's, a good level of communication and back and forth dialogue, making sure that people have opportunities to grow within the company, to that it's not just in the hospitality industry in particular, there's always a lot of turnover. It's a very migratory business, but we want people to come here, and you start out as a busser or a server or whatever, you might, and if you're interested, you might end up working on the production floor, like running the stills at some point, or you might end up on the sales team and traveling to, Paris to sell.
Sign me up for that.
You know what I mean? Like making sure that people know that they have an opportunity for growth within the company, to do different things, to learn different skills. That's a big part of that. And so I wouldn't necessarily refer to her as an HR person, because what we're trying to do is like get out ahead of HR issues and create an environment where people are happy and excited to be a part of it. And, we're taking some, intentional steps towards that progress. And like I said, I think it'll be ongoing for a long time.
I think that's just growth in general. If ever you feel comfortable with where you're at, you're no longer growing. So I applaud you guys for that. I did kind of have a question that maybe pops up. So you talked about education. I'm curious from your perspective, and maybe this is the culture and experience individual you talked about's role, but when it comes to your individuals, do they often know that there are opportunities to grow and expand, or are you finding that they didn't even realize they had that opportunity? And if so, like, how are you going about making sure that they're aware of that?
We try to make sure that is, stated right from the onset, like any new hire that comes in as part of our handbook. Like, look,
that's on your onboarding.
Absolutely. I mean, that is a part of it. And also, you show those things by example, and we've done it multiple times. And I got to say, it makes me really proud when I see that happen. We've got one person on the sales team right now that travels, around the country selling Rieger products and giving, brand presentations and things like that. And he loves it, but he started out as a tour guide, and if you think about it, in order to be a tour guide, you have to know every aspect of the store from 1887 to today, right? And you've got to be able to answer questions on production methods and on the history and on, everything. And so actually talk about a perfect platform to train someone to be a salesperson. You know what I mean?
That is an interesting approach.
Yeah.
I like that. I need to set up some tours now for some of my sales folks too when we get to that point.
Right.
You're going to learn everything with that. Well, yeah, I love that. And I think that really just absolutely can truly transform somebody that, especially in the hospitality, I was in that in college. And, I never thought about growth or anything in that. I thought, how can I get as much money as I can so I can go out and go to the bars and have my drinks and go and do those things. So empowering those individuals to know that like this is a very important job and there's opportunities that can come alongside that. So I love that. Well, let's switch over to more of your personal motivation and inspiration. I'm sure there are days that are harder than the fun days or the harder than most days. But what kind of keeps you coming back day in and day out to continue to grow the brand, grow the company, and grow the individuals within the organization?
Yeah, it's hard to put my finger on one thing, but I think back to where I started in my career. I was a bartender, and I loved being a bartender. Like it was the greatest job in the world, and I encourage everyone to give it a shot. At some point, it's just such a wonderful job. I know it's not for everyone, but I just really loved it, and I had these entrepreneurial aspirations, right? I knew that I wanted to open up my own bar, my own restaurant, and it kind of comes with the territory that once you do that, you're not going to be necessarily doing the thing every day that, made you so happy that got you that opportunity. But now you have all this additional responsibility and new tasks and things that you got to figure out. And, I figured out a little ways into like being an entrepreneur when I owned Manifesto and the Rieger that, some of the joy that I got out of bartending was gone in my role as an owner and a leader. Yeah. And what I had to do was figure out like, how do I get that joy back? And I realized that I had to treat my employees, like every person that worked for me and worked with me, in my business, I had to show them the same level of hospitality with as much joy as I did every single guest that sat at my bar. Yes. And once I did that, not only did it make me happier and feel better, but it made the business more successful as well.
I want to touch on that. That's something that I have taken from my 10 years of sales is that I have found that as much effort as we put into finding that next client, whether you're B2C or B2B, there needs to be as much, if not more effort to the individuals within the organization. And, I also oftentimes call it like marketing to your employees because I mean, they are the ones that oftentimes are doing the really, I know the work that we do as owners is hard work, but they are the ones that are showing up day in and day out that are really on those front lines and being able to make sure the energy that you just talked about, as much as I show a guest, is how much energy I bring to the team. That is transformational. I absolutely love that. Have you maybe experienced some like challenges with any of maybe those days that you're not having a good day and you don't have the energy to bring? Maybe talk about some of those challenges that you've faced.
Yeah, and especially in the hospitality industry, which is there's a lot of emotion, there's a lot of feeling, there's a lot of passion, and heated sometimes. And yeah, I find myself, we all have bad days, and we all have struggles, but I do think that as time goes on and I get older and I've been doing this for longer, hopefully I become more self-aware and try to always be conscious and aware of like how I make other people feel, like not even just by it's not even my words all the time. Like sometimes it's my words, but it's the look on my face, my body language, my presence. Because now with an organization of 120 people, I mean, I don't necessarily know every single person by name all the time. Like we have new hires sometimes that I haven't even met, and so I have to think about like, are they scared of me? Or how am I making them feel when I'm around? And if I'm having a bad day and if I'm in a foul mood, I try to be aware of that and not let that, bleed out into our team.
I heard, and it totally makes sense, and I know it's a very short amount of time, but the speed of light, you see things before you hear things. So there is a study that says your body language is received before even the words that are coming out of your mouth are received from that individual. So their response, their feeling based off of just how you bring yourself to the situation can drastically impact the way they feel, the way that conversation or exchange goes. So having that body language is so, so important when bringing that any sort of fun conversation or challenging conversation to the table. And that's something that I personally do, but just what you echoed, like you don't have to just show up with positive words. You got to show up with a positive body motion too. So we are getting somewhat near the end of this episode, Ryan. And one of the things that we do on this show, just from my appreciation for you coming on and diving deeper into what truly makes J. Rieger & Co. More than a business, is that we want to actually bless somebody, whether it's within your organization, a prospect or a client or a patron, whoever that may be, bless them with one of the meals that we serve here in the Midwest. So I'm curious if you've thought of somebody that you think would be deserving, whether going through good times, bad times, indifferent, or celebration. Now's a chance to kind of say who that person might be and why you would like to send them a really meaningful meal kit.
Yeah, I think the perfect person for this, especially based on the conversation that we just had, is Gay Jones, who is our front desk supervisor here at J. Rieger, and she is just a wonderful, wonderful, kind, amazing human being who is the first face you're going to see when you walk in the door here every day. And she greets every single customer with a smile, and she just radiates positivity and embodies everything that we really, take pride in and want to represent J. Rieger & Company. She embodies all of that. She's a recent cancer survivor, and she is an absolutely vital part of our team, and everyone loves her. So I would like to do that for her.
I love that. Well, we'll connect offline, Ryan, and make sure that we get that released to her. But what a wonderful individual that has had some life thrown at her to be able to welcome other people and probably have a newfound respect for life. So here, I'm going to pull this one up here real quick because Jerry has said that Gay Jones is an angel on earth. So sounds like a wonderful person. I can't wait to go meet her when I walk through those doors pretty soon, but we'll get connected offline and make sure she does that. And Ryan, with that is the end of the show. I cannot thank you enough for coming on and diving in on the back end of what we always see on the front end of what is J. Rieger. And I really appreciate the efforts that you guys are taking, both for making a positive impact on the city, serving the city well. I know not just with alcohol, but all the other effects that you guys have throughout the community, and just you spending the time here to dive into that. So thank you very much, Ryan. I really appreciate that. All right, so we have reached the end of the episode here. We are going to be coming live every single Thursday at 3 p.m. Central Time. If you are new to the show, we would like to welcome you to our next guest, who is going to be coming on next Thursday, which is Stephanie Farley with Berry Companies. I'm excited to have this same type of conversation with her, just to dive in what truly makes Berry Companies more than a business. All right, folks, I appreciate you guys coming on, spending time with us. And until next time, have a wonderful, wonderful day.